In today's fast-paced world, finding inner peace has become increasingly elusive. Many, myself included, are swept up in the constant whirlpool of worry and anxiety. Even when I've made progress, I find myself slipping back into overthinking, analyzing situations from the past or future. This is particularly common among those who experience loneliness. The lack of regular human interaction often leads to excessive rumination, spiraling into harmful thought patterns. In this video, I'll address 5 common negative mental states and offer insights on how we can overcome them. Let's begin with guilt. There are 2 main types of guilt. The first type occurs when someone has genuinely done something wrong. This form of guilt is a natural response and not inherently negative, as it reflects the reality of the situation. It can serve as a guide toward accountability and correction. However, the second type of guilt is problematic. This happens when one repeatedly dwells on past mistakes or feels uncertain about whether they even made a mistake, yet they're consumed by it. This is the type of guilt that leads to negative self-perceptions, where thoughts can snowball into irrational conclusions. For instance, you might fail an exam and conclude that you're worthless, or fail to reach societal standards of success and label yourself a failure. In more extreme situations, like infidelity, acknowledging the harm caused to others is important. But holding on to guilt for life doesn't benefit anyone. Guilt becomes a paralyzing state of mind, breeding self-hatred, suffering, and the loss of confidence. People burdened by guilt often internalize every negative event as their fault, fueling a downward spiral. To overcome this, self-forgiveness is essential. Focus on changing what you can and accepting what's beyond your control. Engage in self-reflection and open communication with others to assess whether your negative self-judgments align with how others perceive you. Ultimately, cultivate a sense of inner calm. Next, we turn to attachment. In Buddhist philosophy, attachment is seen as a root cause of suffering. It's important to differentiate attachment from genuine love or appreciation. Romantic love, often glorified as the pinnacle of life's aspirations, can sometimes manifest as unhealthy attachment, leading to destructive emotions like jealousy, resentment, and anger. You may love someone deeply today, but hate them tomorrow because they didn't respond to a message. Ask yourself, can real love transform into hatred in an instant? The answer is no. True love doesn't morph into animosity. What you're experiencing is attachment. Attachment means an excessive desire not to be separated from someone or something. The opposite of this is aversion. From a Stoic perspective, attachment and aversion are 2 sides of the same coin, both generating tension. For example, if you're attached to someone, you'll suffer when they leave. But if you harbor aversion towards someone, you'll suffer when they come near. Both cases reveal a fixation on a specific outcome, and when that outcome isn't met, the result is pain. Understanding these mental states can liberate us from unnecessary suffering. Rather than allowing guilt to immobilize us, we can learn from it and move forward. Instead of clinging to attachments, we can practice letting go and experience more genuine, stable forms of love and connection. The path to inner peace involves recognizing these states, reflecting on our responses to them, and adopting practices that restore balance to the mind. Through mindfulness and a deeper awareness of our mental patterns, we can cultivate a life that's less burdened by guilt, attachment, and other negative forces, and more aligned with peace and clarity. In our lives, we often become attached not only to people and things, but also to ideas and perspectives about the world around us. This attachment can limit us, clouding our judgment and creating unnecessary suffering. To move beyond it, we can replace attachment with unconditional love. Practice letting go, explore the nature of human emotions, and embrace the impermanence of life. Emotions, like everything else, are transient, and our ability to accept this transience allows us to release the tight grip of attachment and open ourselves to a more peaceful existence. Now, let's talk about envy. This mental state shares similarities with attachment. When we feel envy, we desire what others have, whether it's their partner, their material possessions, or their career. The issue with envy is that it fosters resentment, both towards the person we envy and towards ourselves for not possessing what they have. This hidden resentment drains our energy, quietly fueling a deep dissatisfaction. In life, instead of allowing envy to take over, we can turn it into a positive force. Rather than begrudging someone else's success, we can use it as motivation for our own growth. Buddhism suggests a radical approach. Instead of envy, we should practice mudita, which means feeling joy for others' good fortune. When we sincerely celebrate another's success, those positive vibrations can bring joy and happiness into our own lives. Moreover, it spares us the needless suffering caused by someone else's achievements. After all, there will always be people more successful than we are, and it's exhausting to feel upset every time we encounter someone who has something we desire. Instead of feeding envy, we can cultivate happiness for others and release our attachment to external markers of success. Fear is another powerful mental state that governs much of our inner dialogue. The word fear can be interpreted as false evidence appearing real. Often, we are afraid of future events, conjuring countless scenarios that feed our anxiety and create insecurity. We forget that these are merely mental projections, not actual threats. I've battled anxiety for years, and I now realize that much of my thinking was consumed by fears of the future. Most of these fears never materialized and were driven by irrationality. Take phobias as an example. We fear things like spiders, despite their being non-venomous in most cases, or even suffer from seemingly irrational fears like agoraphobia, a fear of dancing in public. These fears have no logical basis, yet they exert real power over us. I'm not suggesting that all fears are baseless. Some serve as genuine protective mechanisms, but allowing them to dominate our minds can undermine our mental and physical health. Overcoming fear requires a rational approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is rooted in Stoic philosophy, offers an effective way to challenge these irrational thoughts. Accepting our thoughts and calming the mind through meditation also helps. Further, facing our fears through research or direct exposure can gradually help us dismantle them. Lastly, we come to anger. The Dalai Lama once said, "When reason ends, anger begins." Therefore, anger is a sign of weakness. This doesn't imply that anger is always irrational. Many people have legitimate reasons to be angry. However, the destructive nature of anger is what makes it problematic. Anger can wreak havoc on your life. Some people live in a near-constant state of anger and hatred, and though this anger may be justified, it ultimately consumes them from within, creating a barrier between them and the world. Anger, even when justified, is like a cancer. Just as a cancerous tumor might have a clear biological cause, anger may have a clear emotional cause, but in both cases, it will destroy you if left unchecked. To truly grow and find peace, we must recognize these emotions and learn how to navigate them. Anger, envy, fear, these are natural parts of the human experience, but they don't have to control us. Through self-reflection, mindfulness, and practices like CBT, we can break free from the grip of these negative mental states and move toward a life of greater serenity and understanding. Anger is like holding a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You get burned first before you ever let it go. I used to be quick to anger, and even now I still struggle with it at times, but I've come to realize that it's nothing more than a waste of time and energy. Anger, at its core, consumes you long before it affects anyone else. To manage anger effectively, we can practice forgiveness and compassion and closely observe our thoughts before they escalate into an outburst. Instead of reacting immediately with rage, holding back and reflecting can save us from unnecessary pain, both for ourselves and for those around us. Often, the damage caused by anger is irreversible, and the wounds it leaves, whether physical or emotional, are far more lasting than the brief satisfaction of releasing it. In the end, negative mental states like jealousy, fear, and anger don't have to control our lives. We can learn to manage and overcome them, cultivating a more peaceful existence full of joy and meaning. These emotions, while natural, become problematic when left unchecked, draining our energy and distorting our perspective on life. Envy, for example, only sows bitterness, but when transformed into admiration or inspiration, it can drive us to self-improvement. Fear, when irrational, paralyzes us. Yet by challenging these fears through reason and action, we can diminish their hold over us. Anger, while sometimes justified, often leaves us isolated and emotionally exhausted. By adopting strategies like mindfulness, reflection, and compassion, we gradually gain control over these powerful emotions rather than letting them control us. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and share to spread this meaningful message. And don't miss out on future content. Hit subscribe to stay connected. Let's all work together to cultivate forgiveness and love in our lives. See you in the next video.